Alrighty, folks, what's going on? This is Matt here from Dark One Linux Tech Gamers, the fusion of Linux technology and gaming. And we are looking at a video that caught my interest, more popular YouTuber, I guess, trying Linux as a complete beginner. I didn't look at a lot of it. I just saw the title, and anybody who knows me, I'm always about seeing what new users that are trying to switch have to say, good, bad, or indifferent, and we'll see where it goes from there. Other than that, you guys know what to do. Let's get into it and see what this person's experience as a complete beginner in Linux was like.
This is a Dell XPS from 2021. It's sleek, it's thin, and it cost me a couple $1,000s, but a couple months ago, it stopped working. It would just get stuck on the boot screen and just shut off constantly. I figured it was a battery issue, and I tossed it aside in the closet. But there was one last hope for it, and that's with Linux. Now, in another video where I finally quit Windows to go to Mac, many of you told me that Linux would have been easier and free. Just put it on an unused PC, you said. And so, I had an idea, and I used this laptop for it. And what happened after that was actually amazing. I've been using.
So, see, this is the stuff that I do like. And I'll be the first to admit, sometimes I'm quite critical of the kind of Linux evangelist point of view of things. And, I say this as someone who literally for the last week I was daily driving Ubuntu Touch as my primary phone. So like to say I don't give Linux its fair shot or give it its fair shake, severe understatement. But really, it boils down to sometimes it's just not the right goddamn solution, and sometimes people just automatically assume it is. So I do like the suggestion of when she switched to a Mac that the person in the comments just vaguely mentioned putting it on, unused hardware or something, and that at least generically will give you an indication of whether or not the overall user experience, the UI perspective, will work for you. Caveats of like hardware working for you can be a different story, but that's with any OS, regardless, because like three dead trolls in a baggie, every OS sucks. So let's keep going.
Using Linux for the past month now, and honestly, it's sort of awesome. So is Linux going to bring life back into my old laptop? Did I just waste money by switching to Mac? Or is this all going to be a huge waste of time? A couple of weeks ago, I finally quit Windows. Windows 11 kept showing me ads and unwanted content in the taskbar, on the startup screen, and everywhere else it could. Now, if I wanted content, I would go to YouTube, maybe even TikTok if I was desperate, but not on my operating system. So I finally broke. I couldn't handle it anymore, and I quit it for good. I wanted control of my device, not to be controlled by it. So I bought a refurbished MacBook Air for a couple $100s, thinking it would be my primary OS. But that didn't come without problems. Despite that, I was happy with my Switch. My new to me Mac could do everything I wanted it to, with the perk of being ultra portable too. But after releasing a video on it, my happiness transformed into uncertainty, because now everyone was saying Linux would have given me what I wanted and more for free.
So, two things. I'm of two minds. I am very much a use what works for you kind of thing. I think what people miss here is use what works for you, but know all your options. And I think that's where sometimes the Linux folks kind of miss the boat. Present your options, much like in this case, they were presented. I don't know how they were presented by the community before making the recommendation to, Linux or whatever. What I would have personally done as a Linux person is, if you were just saying, hey, I'm going away from Windows. Like, this is the video where I'm going away from Windows. That's the video for Linux people to comment on. Or, I'm switching from Mac OS to insert thing here. Those are the videos that they need to comment on and be like, hey, these are why it might be a good option for you. So taking control back to your computer, your PC, that is the epitome and the essential selling point control that the Linux community from a marketing perspective sucks at selling, because they freeze and freedom, but not freeze and it's all stupid, and marketing is not the Linux community's strong point. The biggest thing I will say is I hate when they use free, price wise, as the selling point, because it's missing the fucking point. So for me, the price thing doesn't. I donate to OBS, KDE, Plasma, whatever you want to call it. There's specific distros that I donate to because they provide me a service. It's no different than me paying for a product. It's just I view projects generically as products. If they take donations, if they don't, then there's other ways to contribute and, make the product better. But I think when it comes to the control aspect, you probably got a lot of flack specifically because the Mac control, like Mac OS, controls the experience you're really allowed. And Apple controls that experience very, very tightly. So it's cool that it does everything you wanted. But if you're looking for control and all that kind of stuff, Mac OS not the best because walled garden that play within our sandbox in these rules, and there is no Windows. And well, that could be a good thing depending on where you're going from.
Had I made a mistake? I've tried Linux Ubuntu more than 10 years ago, but I quit it after about 30 seconds only to come running back to Windows. I couldn't use the command line. But hundreds of anonymous comments telling me Linux is better can't be wrong, right? So now I'm asking myself, is Linux the right operating system for me? Or am I about to discover exactly why it's free? Now, the only problem is, well, actually, there are a lot of problems. The first is that I'm not a tech person. I have no IT background or programming background. I have a STEM background in science. So the second is, how does one just start using Linux? After all, one does not simply walk into Mordor. Everyone acts like Linux is this singular thing, like Windows or Mac, but it's not. Linux is a collection of hundreds of different peanut butter brands, aka distros, where Windows is a specific type of almond butter and Mac is another very specific type of macadamia nut butter. I'm getting hungry. So I'm here looking at all the different distros wondering which one do I pick? Clearly, whoever said put it on an unused PC didn't specify what it even was. Do I install Ubuntu, Mint, Arch, Fedora? Someone just tell me what to pick. And after reading a bunch of Google search results and Reddit posts, I'm left more confused than ever. The most common...
To be fair to her point, the Linux community is like, oh, just put Linux on it. Well, okay, that's cool. Thanks for the recommendation. Which one? And my argument is you will get some jackasses and jackwagons on here that oh, distros don't fucking matter. Get good and all this other shit. What I've learned over the many, many years of Linux is even the distros that seem like have no purpose all have a fucking demographic. And in her case, I would point her to something like I'm not a Mint guy, but like I'd point her to Mint, something that has a lot of more stability. Its base is Ubuntu, which is much more commercially supported. Fedora, maybe like a Fedora spin. It all depends on what she's using. And that's kind of where you start. You pick the distro solely based on what the user needs. I'm not like in her case, she saw the command line and went running. I'm not going to fucking recommend you install Arch, like period, or Nix, or anything that solely relies on command line. I just wouldn't. So like a Mint, maybe like a Bazite, or I don't know if it's a gaming focus kind of thing. Like it all depends on what you're using. So what these people should have been asking is questions about what your use of computer involves. And generically, they don't do that because they're just projecting what they use onto you. And then when they say use Linux, so insert distro here, I'm much more, what's your use case for, computers? And that's really what we should be asking, the right way to be asking. That's the way we put the personal back into personal computing. That's how we give the user the control. Because some people don't give a shit about tech. It's a tool for them to get an end result they need. And the computer is the thing that provides. And some in the Linux community tend to be very vocal about not welcoming those type of people. And my question to those very vocal people is, would you rather these people be using Windows or Mac OS? Because then they don't get any. Then what benefit are we gaining by having a more open system, but that is being run by none or like 5% of the market? I'm more for an open base, much more than I am for close whatever nonsense we have now for a majority of people.
Common answers were just pick the one that's good for your needs. Wow, thanks. If I knew which one was good for me, I would have installed it already. But when confused, just follow the herd, right? And after constant research and deliberation and following the AI overview, I picked Mint because everyone likes it, and I sure hope I made the right decision. It's supposed to be like Windows, very user-friendly and work right out of the box. Easy enough. Boy, was I wrong. When you open up the Mint website, you're hit with another difficult choice. There's 3 versions: a sleek, modern and innovative Cinnamon Edition, a light, simple, and efficient X-Fist Edition, a classic and traditional Mate Edition. It's like online dating. Which one has the best description that best matches what I want? You probably can't go wrong with sleek and innovative. It's slick, it's beautiful, it's full of new features. Put that on your dating profile, I dare you. You might get a hit. So Cinnamon it is. I downloaded the ISO file from one of their many download hosts. They have a lot. And after some copy and pasting, I mean elite terminal hacking skills, I verified that I had a legitimate copy of this distro. So why do you need that, you ask? Because it's the internet. And there's a possibility that a bad actor somewhere on the internet modified this image so it's broken or even dangerous. They could be hacking me or tracking my keystrokes. Now that I know it's legit, it's time to...
So, to be fair, Mint unfortunately at one point did have a incident where there was some questionable ISOs uploaded and run by them. So, to be fair, generically, you know, the MD5 subcheck stuff, like if you're going from a host that you trust or a website that generically hosts it, I'm not, as bad as it sounds from a security perspective, whatever. Like for me, like if I'm going to like the Garuda website and downloading from Garuda or 3 or 4 hosts that they're using, I generically know those 3 or 4 hosts are usually pretty good. So like I get doing the MD5 some check. If you're on the actual website or mirrors, it's less needed than most of the time, but it is a good practice for like a security perspective. I take your pick. A lot of that's going to be end user discretion more than anything else. The option for end users to be able to do that is nice. Most probably, and that's fine too. Like again, if the website that promoting these links is, if these Linux distros are being promoted on these other mirrors, I would hope there's enough intelligence on the community aspect to follow through on those to make sure they're legit. I'll put it.
To write it to a USB drive I found laying around. You just download a program called Balena Etcher, click a couple buttons, and boom! My ISO image was on my USB drive. So I got my old laptop, I plugged in the drive using a hub, and then it just worked. Just kidding.
Okay, let's see what she says here, because this could be interesting.
You didn't actually expect it to work right away, did you? But I wasn't willing to give up yet. I was determined not to let Linux beat me, especially not so early in the process. This is Mint Cinnamon, not the infamously hard to install Arch Linux, maybe, which I'll use maybe later. So I went through various troubleshooting to get my laptop to boot from USB, but after constant keyboard bashing on delete, escape, and F12, I finally got it to work by hacking through the matrix. Now at this point, I sure hoped there wouldn't be more problems ahead for me. After all, this distro just works out of the box. And with various waits and clicks later, I got through the installation process without a hitch. It was surprisingly well put together and looked very polished. I was shocked. It even gave me a slideshow on all the different softwares I could use, like Steam and Discord. But there was one big surprise in that there were 0 ads, no upsells, no promotions, nothing. It felt like freedom. I restarted and boom, there it was. I was using Linux. So first things first, I need to download OBS so I can record and show you what I'm doing. So with Windows and Mac, you install software by downloading these packages in .exe or .dmg files. But with Linux, there's this clean and easy way to install software that doesn't involve any of that. Instead,
This, boys and girls, is the part where I'm talking about the store aspect of it, the mobile phone portion. Package managers, add remove from like the 7.0 days of Ubuntu, etc. We were doing the stores before stores were doing stores. And we need to emphasize that these stores or software center repositories essentially are much easier and much better than the experience that you're going to get on, especially Windows, because no one uses the Windows Store, than you'll get on either OS that is currently available. Selling point, folks. Market.
you open up the terminal, Elite Hacker, by the way, Epic Hacker, and you type in sudo, which...
Or I could be totally wrong, and they go with the sudo app. Get crap fucking right.
I've learned is like an admin user. I think it stands for super user. You type in APT, which is not apartment, but a program that handles software packages, and the rest, well, you understand the rest. So you type sudo apt install obs-studio. It's installed, it's ready to go, and I honestly think I'm getting the hang of this. So now that it's installed, there are certain things I need to do to make my Linux useful. Sure, it does work great out of the box, but
And again, I'm going to recommend, especially this is the new user. Like, this is, again, demographic meant specifically. You guys talk about being the new user distro. Fix your fucking man pages and documentation to cater to the fucking new user doesn't want a sudo apt install fucking blah 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 app or library. They want the pointy clicky fucking shit. That's your demographic. Learn it. Not hard.
it's like getting a new phone. You have to change all the settings, install, uninstall programs, and truly customize and optimize it to fit your needs. So I want mine to be similar to my main computer, which means resembling and working like how Mac does. When you're using a new PC, you want to make sure the drivers are updated, or else things might not run properly. And to do that, there was this thing called an update manager that did it all for me with a click of a button. Just update. And boom, it installed. So convenient. When I set up a device, I always schedule a nighttime mode. On Windows, I use a program called Flux to make the screen more yellow at night so I could go to sleep better. It was a lot easier than I thought though. Mint Cinnamon has something called the night light that sets a schedule and temperature you want your screen to be. I didn't have to do any hacking. So slowly, I started changing all the settings so it would resemble my keyboard shortcuts and workflow with Mac. The first was to install a Spotlight-like program called ULauncher. The second was to switch Control and Alt around, and the third is to move the top bar to the left side instead of the right. That's pretty close to Mac, but I'll get into all the customization I can do on Linux soon. But many of you who are switching away from Windows are probably wondering one thing. Can you game on Linux? Well, like all answers, it depends. I was able to download Steam and Steam games, but I'll test them out later because my laptop just ran out of batteries and I left the charger at home. I honestly needed a break from Linux anyways. At that point, it seemed like a promising OS. But there was one question looming over me. Did I really waste hundreds of dollars by switching to Mac instead of just jumping into the unknown of Linux? This break was a great opportunity to eat at our new favorite health food shop because we're training for our first triathlon. And when you're swimming, running, and biking 2 times a week, good food is your best friend. I guess using Linux is a lot like working out. It's frustrating, it's exhausting, but it's also oddly satisfying when you're problem solving and troubleshooting your way through it. Like successfully playing a game on hard mode. Pat yourself on the back. But anyways, I got the charger and went back to the office to plug it in. Linux gaming used to not be a real thing, but Steam Play now lets you run Windows-only games on Linux by using a compatibility layer called Proton. Don't ask me for details, I just know it works. Not every game is compatible, but most of them are. So after I made sure my laptop was ready to handle work tasks like Discord and Notion, honestly, it would be crazy if I could just replace my entire work setup with Linux. I mean, would I miss my MacBook? Or would Linux just be so much more
So, the one aspect I want to mention with the game, compare Linux gaming and Mac gaming. Very different world.
superior in every way. And hours later, my Linux environment was ready for me to switch to it. But there was one big problem. Wait, is this like deja vu? Because there's a lot of problems. My laptop setup is designed to work with my Mac, not a Linux laptop. The adapter I use to go from a USB port to 2 HDMI monitors doesn't have software for Linux. And the CalDigit TS3 doesn't work either, despite showing the blue on light. Why doesn't it work? So was this the end? All of that hard work and nothing to show for it? Surely someone before me has tried to plug in multiple monitors to their Linux laptop. And they had. In September of 2015, this exact article or forum post, someone had the same problem. It links to the drivers that actually were updated in 2025, which means it's new and it has to work. It would be game changing to use my Linux laptop with my current dual monitor setup. That would be awesome. Now, after messing with the terminal and the Eufy menu again, I finally got everything to install. The dual monitors worked, but the dock still didn't, and my laptop only has 3 ports. It's not enough to access all my desk accessories. Not to mention, I'm currently connected to internet with Wi-Fi and not a hardwired connection. For my need, aka uploading huge video files, Wi-Fi just isn't good enough. So it's back to Google once again. Everyone is saying Linux is about freedom. Freedom feels suspiciously like reading endless Reddit threads and Google posts. But luckily, I found someone who was in my exact situation. A Reddit user from 5 years ago with the exact same laptop as me wanted to connect his Thunderbolt dock as well. And he conveniently outlined his step-by-step process. Back to my elite hacking on the terminal again, and I did it. It's not perfect, but I now have 2 external displays and a ton of accessories and a working dock. So the switch from Mac to Linux was actually faster than Windows to Mac, surprisingly. There are so many resources and other people with similar problems as me out there. The internet is such a great place. So I didn't have to give up on Linux after all. But the real question remains, can my Linux laptop become the ultimate work and gaming machine? So despite everything working for now, I'm hesitant to pack away my MacBook permanently. Mac still feels safer to use, and I 100% know it won't have problems. I'm not sure I can say the same for Linux. I've proved Linux has the ability to do pretty much every work task, but what about gaming? Now, to disclaimer, I'm not an avid gamer, but I do play from time to time, mostly on my Steam Deck. But Jake sometimes plays at home, and he's super into Cities, Sky.
And you're already a Linux gamer by having Steam. I don't know if you blew away and put Windows on it, but if you're already running A, by the way, you're using Arch. B, by the way, you're an Arch user. And C, you're already a Linux user.
Right now, it's a city builder game, so I'm going to download that for him. The moment of truth, will it game? And it does. I mean, it opens the program. It's a little slow considering it's still a laptop. I guess I have to turn all the graphics really low, and then maybe I'll just play a graphically low intensity game like old school RuneScape. But Linux can't play every game out there. Games with anti-cheat systems like Valorant just won't work properly. But at least I know it plays more games than Mac, so I'll put that as a small win. So was I wrong in switching to Mac instead of going open source with Linux? Will Linux become my daily driver? And more importantly, should you switch to Linux? Now, before I can answer all those questions, I want to show you my finished Mint Cinnamon right here. But for some reason, the boot up, I think, is really slow. So I'm going to need to learn some ultra hacker things to make it boot up a lot faster. But look at it. It's so pretty. I think one of the things that I didn't expect Linux to be was pretty. At the bottom here, you've got the time and everything. You've got the battery mode here. The battery has actually improved on Linux compared to Windows. Like, it lasts way longer. It tells me exactly how much time I have remaining, what percentage is left. I can down the brightness right here. I don't even have to go into settings and do crazy stuff, and I can turn down the backlight. And there's different modes. So this is a Mint Cinnamon thing. Mint Mate did not have these Power Saver Balance Performance modes. This is the update manager. This is how you install updates. It's really easy. You just press this button, install updates, and boom, it'll do it for you. So this is the start menu. I've got Firefox Software Manager, which apparently you're not supposed to install software with the software manager. You're supposed to do the sudo apt install blank blank blank. That way the thing will update itself, where with the software manager you have to uninstall the old one, install the new one, and keep doing that. So you don't want to do that. And then
And so for me, I'm going to recommend, while there are issues with some of the software centers, specifically ones that have multiple installations of the same time, because they use Debs, and they have the option for Flatpak. What I will say is, for me, for a distro specifically that is going to market, cater, or make your primary focus and demographic new, and you don't focus on the new users by understanding what UX and UI matter to them, which is not sudo apt install shit or sudo pacman and tac syu install. It doesn't fix your shit. Like that's my biggest thing with some of these. They cater to a market, but they don't understand the fucking because their documentation and shit doesn't reflect the market they're it's like so ass back, you know. It'd be like a easy to trying to cater to super power nerds, but they don't provide the documentation beyond the little plastic card that gives you the bare bones base of through the GUI kind of thing. It's like it's so ass back. But that's my biggest issue with it. So like Mint and projects that cater to new users, fix your man pages, fix your shit, cater to your market through UI and use. It's not fucking rocket. And yes, you can do updates through the goddamn package managers, like the actual GUI package manager. That advice is either dumb, old, or stupid from a power user who doesn't.
And then if I press Alt and space, boom, my U launcher pops up. And with it, I can open Firefox amongst various other softwares. I could do whatever with it. It's really cool. I've been using it every night. It's my dedicated home laptop. And then my MacBook, I just keep it in the office. I love that it's brought life back to my laptop. So honestly, in theory, I could have saved hundreds, if not thousands of dollars by choosing Linux instead of Mac. Could have. Being the answer. But I paid for assurance. Knowing that I didn't have to troubleshoot random software when working, it's worth the money. I don't regret it, but I am super happy to have made the jump to Linux and being brave enough to try it. From my past month with Linux, especially Mint so far, it's surprisingly easy to use if you're willing to Google and just troubleshoot some things yourself. Maybe a decade ago, Linux was reserved for programmers and hackers of the world, but now it's much more accessible. For the longest time, I was afraid of switching to Linux. It felt like jumping off the diving board for the first time, which I did last week. You think you're gonna die, like actually just go under and die. But in reality, there's just a bit of discomfort, you're under the water a bit, and then you float back to the top and then you're okay. Linux lets you feel like an absolute hacker for opening up the terminal and putting in random commands and maybe the person next to you has no idea what you're doing. And it gives you the freedom and control that you want. And it is as good as other people say it is. The options are endless, but it's not without its problems either. Mac and Windows have so much more compatibility with most programs like Notion and Adobe. So before you switch to Linux, make sure that it can do what you need it to. So if you've been looking to get into Linux, be brave. It's not as hard.
So like that's kind of always been my.
I love getting a new
Stupid things. Thank you, YouTube, for being worse as you. So that has always been my thing: is use the right tool for you, what works for you. Just as a Linux user, just present the option. And if you're going to present the options, be better than it's Linux, use it, or use Linux. And it's like, okay, understanding the person you're telling to use Linux, and maybe give 2 or 3 and honestly, the best way to get people to quote unquote switch is make the OS not fuck. The less they have to rely on the underlying OS, because most people are going to give me the tools so I can get whatever. That's all they care about. To these guys, the programs are the base mattering to an extent. The super nerds and the area that Linux people fall that, but we like DIY. We do all that stuff. We're the hot rod people that like to customize and stuff. Or I can go buy a fucking pre-done one. Like that's what Linux boils down to when kind of Linux making recommendations. Like they're not specific enough, or they have their head shoved so far up their own ass that the only recommendation is the one that they are willing to make is because they like. I use Garuda. I use Arch-based distros generically. That is not the recommendation I generic, but I will make the recommendation based on certain hardware. Are you looking for all AMD or NVIDIA? Certain you have to make recommendations for based on. And a lot of people are stupid when it comes into the Linux community, and they don't do that. They say, oh, I use NixOS and it works. You should use it. No, Bob just wants to be able to print something to his, like they don't need Nix and all the Kung Fu CLI bullshit like that. So my biggest critique of most people who are going to comment about you, understand the demo of the person you're making the recommendation. That is the outlier to distros and distro maintainers. Fix your fucking man pages to understand the demographic you're pitching to. Don't pitch to new users and all your fucking help pages be pseudo app shit, which is going to send them screaming back to wherever they came from because it's lower barrier to entry does not mean getting rid. It just means understanding the markets you're catering to because it's like fucking marketing. As far as this person, props to you for getting through some of the headaches. And again, every OS, it's just how much suckage can you handle from the OS at this point? Like you, Windows has become a nope for me after I just can't. And probably $400 or $500 on a 2019 MacBook Pro 16-inch, and I can tell you, after a long time of using it, nope, Mac OS ain't it. Too many headaches, too many things to jump through, too many impediments to being a usable piece. But on the same note, I also understand Linux has its headaches. There's sometimes I get updates and shit. What battles do you want to fight? That's really what it was. At least control over the battles I do have to fight, as opposed to someone stupid artificial limitations on my hardware, etc. That's what really drove me away from any of the proprietary stuff as far as big planned obsolescence and all the other nonsense that they do. Windows with its stupid TPM 2.0 requirements and generational processors that it don't. Apple going M1 only, but making Intel Max a pain in the ass with like T2 and all the other stupid shit. So there's a that drove me away. You know, Windows being every iteration update being a progressively worse version of the. Like, I've never met a company that intentionally makes their product worse with every update, maybe except for Apple. So yeah, that's just kind of glad to see the Switch is working somewhat. Going through the the initial head-in battles, it was cool. Glad to see another Linux user, potential new user, and we will see where their journey takes them, and hopefully they gain some personal back into their personal computing by taking some control. The ones that don't want you to have any. So you guys know what to do. Cover and subscribe, all that fun crap. And Indie Gala Patreon, blah, blah, blah. All in the description. I will catch you on the next one. Peace.